Anyone who's ever found themselves lacking the inspiration to do all the things that you need to do to create that dream life is going to want to hear this episode. Let's talk about it. You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deep reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Lee Bowers, master healer and academic researcher. And this is another episode diving into the science and spirit of happy, a logical path to soul. Get it, y'all! Welcome back. If you are joining us today and you have been following along throughout this season, you should probably be pretty eager to find out what I'm going to say, because we have worked our way through the first 6 personal powers that are required for you to create the life that you want to live, to stop the past from creating your future the way that we know it statistically does. And in doing so, we've covered the mind, the 2 personal powers of the mind, the 2 personal powers of the heart, the 2 personal powers of the spirit, of energy. And now we're going into the final 2 personal powers, which belong to the district of body, which is where the just do it messaging comes from when we're talking about personal and professional development. And I've been talking a little bit throughout this season how personal and professional development can pretty much be summed up, all the information can pretty much be summed up in like decide what you want, and then do, right? There's a little bit of, discussion about you having to make a plan to get there, but pretty much the plan that you have to make is always the do plan, what you need to do. And I've been explaining throughout this season that there's so many steps in between that. And the result, when you go through those steps, the result is the do step, is the physical, is the body step. So we're talking about the 2 personal powers that kind of govern the body step and the ones that you need to develop in order to do the things after you've developed all the other personal powers. So people that are doing the things, they either already have all of the other things, which is typically what we see. People have been raised without having blocks to all of those other personal powers put in their way. So they naturally do the things. So they don't understand how somebody could not be inspired and not have motivation and not be disciplined, or then, they just don't understand how somebody could be living anything other than a beautiful life by choice. And that's what it seems like, is that it's a choice. But we don't choose our parents. We don't choose our upbringing. And by the time that we realize there's a problem, or by the time that you can see that there's a problem, you can see that there's a lack of motivation, a lack of will, a lack of passion, a lack of inspiration, a lack of all of these things that we're told we need to get to success. By the time that you can see that there's a lack, the damage is long done. Long done. So for anybody who is lacking any of the things that they need to do to get to the things that they need to do, they need a different road. And it's highly unlikely that people find the road, and the people that do find the road do all of these things intuitively. if they do truly holistically find the road, right? They pave the way to their genuine dream life where they're fulfilled, where they're happy, not just where they make a bunch of money and, 20 years later, hit a wall, get burnout, get a huge divorce, lose their family, kids won't talk to them, this kind of thing. Like, no, like people who are really fulfilled, who go from not fulfilled at all to being really, really, truly fulfilled, they intuit these steps and they're few and far between. So we're going to end that right now. We're going to end that people need to intuit these steps all by themselves and figure out how to do this all by themselves, because I'm going to teach you. Okay. Because I'm one of the people who, I don't know. I mean, you could say intuit, but my change has been hard one, and I'm still changing. I'm still growing. I'm still 100% in the ring. This is why I started this podcast, to explain to you the steps that I'm taking now and the steps that I've taken throughout my life, throughout my adult life, to dramatically change where I am now from where I began. So recently I've been having another really kind of challenging time where I needed to go through the steps again myself. Moving, I'm in Thailand right now. Moving was absolutely terrible. Okay, moving was terrible. We were actually leaving to Australia. We typically live in Australia. We got stuck during the pandemic, etc. The borders were closed, whatever. So we were in Canada. We had been stuck there for years. So we didn't buy anything really. We're still driving my car from university, and like staying with family. Just waiting to be able to go. We moved to Mexico for a year of that time too, and just kind of traveled and whatever, not traveled around, but lived abroad. But we were finally on our way back to Australia, found out that we were expecting, and we've wanted a child, really badly. We weren't trying because it wasn't the right time, but we wanted a child very badly. So complications happened, or they thought I had a complication that made it so that I had to stay, that I wasn't allowed to fly, that I shouldn't go to Australia because paying for medical costs out of pocket there might get expensive if I had this complication. So we went back to my hometown, got a condo. 2 years later, I mean, weeks after we got this condo and furnished it completely, we found out that I didn't have the complication, but we had furnished this condo. We were paying for this condo. We were locked into paying for this condo. And we had bought everything for this apartment. We had planned to have our baby there. So we stayed. 2 years later, fast forward, we were going to rent out the apartment furnished so that we didn't have to get rid of all the stuff. Plans changed last minute, and I had to sell everything we own in 2 weeks. We left one box to send, and the rest we brought with us. We sold everything that we owned in 2 weeks, and we came to Thailand. I have a very, very active kid. Thailand was not for my kid. Thailand has not been the place for my kid. My kid is not happy here. He's had a lot of wonderful experiences, but he's not thriving here. And that actually has illuminated a lot of things about my parenting that were working, and that I know is working now, because it's not just a character thing. My kid wasn't just doing really well because he's a good kid that was born, good and easy or whatever. But a lot of my parenting tactics I've learned now were really working, because I can't do them anymore. I can't provide the life for him that I wanted to anymore here, the way that I want to do it, and he's not doing well here. So this was supposed to be a break, and it's been super annoying. So we're leaving to Australia. We're cutting our trip a month short. We've been here for a couple months already. So yeah, like none of this stuff happened the way that it should have, and it's been triggering. It's been really, really triggering. Oh, and then there was the nightmare tenant, which I've been talking about. And that was very, very triggering, to be like abused by somebody who's, unstable. And it's super, super triggering for both myself and my husband. But because we have traumatic childhoods and a traumatic past, that was really, really difficult, on top of all of the other stresses. And then to boot, where we're going back to Australia, we're immigrating, right? We sold everything that we own. We have a child, we have a family, we have a brand new business. This is like a dream come true, but it's also like, it's very, very scary. And we have to level up in so many different ways that, like we have to come up against all of these like constricting, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, energies, etc., all of our past, getting over all of the ways that we were molded, breaking that mold and growing into a new shape that's more beautiful, that's more aligned with who we want to be. All of that stuff is really, really hard. So one day I was feeling kind of anxious, and a French family sat down next to us to share our table at this little bakery that we go to because it was all full. And I just want to explain to you what anxiety looks like, or what it can look like anyways. My body language, they asked, can we sit down? I said, oh yes, of course. My body language, I immediately turned away from them. I could feel my body actually closing in towards, my family and my people. And the woman was wearing like a scarf over her head, like, probably like chemotherapy was going on or something. And Canadians, I'm Canadian born and raised, Canadians try to avoid anything embarrassing. So that was like also playing into it. And I was like really shutting down to them. But I recognized it, right? Because I have the awareness, right? Because I can seek the clarity. I could feel my body kind of shrinking away from these people just out of anxiousness. And I ran through the steps. I sought connection, right? That, like, can you imagine what I look like to these people? Anxiety can look very much like rudeness, like being extremely snobbish, and it is rude. It is rude that somebody sits down and I would like turn my body away from them, close my energy off to them, and just focus on like the people that I'm with. So I started to recognize the anxiety, recognize the feelings I was having, and just sort of dropping into the feeling like they're just people. They're just people. And I don't want to make them feel that way. And hey, like they're European. They're not Canadian. North Americans are very like, oh, my personal space, respect people's personal spaces. But like Europeans are not. And so I just opened my body up, and I had a great chat with her. She was a mama too, and she had her little kid there, and they were speaking in French. I'm Canadian. I understand a bit of French. So I could understand like a little bit of what they were saying. And like the kid was really smart, and I treated her totally normally because I think people that are going through stuff or whatever, like most people just want to be treated normally. I treated her totally normally, and this was a success. Okay, so the personal power that I'm talking about today is beauty. So beauty is everywhere, okay? It's us who open to it or close to it. So this very quick scenario that I'm explaining to you, this is how all of the steps will lead you down towards being open in the physical with other people having experiences of beauty. The second encounter was a Russian mother and child, an adult child, right? The adult child, we have a shuttle bus that goes from our condo residence resort to town, to the beach every day, multiple times a day. So I'm a little bit closed off to new people. If you ever lived in a touristy town, you'll know that people who live in a place it's very tough to get to know them because they're closed off to people. And having grown up partially in a tourist place, I know that it's because people leave and it hurts, and then you close off and you don't necessarily like open up to new people again because you're expecting them to leave. So I was like a little bit closed off to like all of like the new people that sort of come through for like a week or whatever. But this was a little bit extra because the adult child was very, very, very tall, like very, very, very tall, and quite overweight, and had a non normative look to them. And I don't know if I like judged them or if I was just avoiding like the same awkwardness, like not wanting to like embarrass anybody Canadian thing. But I do know also that there is something innate in us, especially when it comes to like gender things. But there's all of these things that we learn in childhood, and gender is one of them that you learn very, very young. Is that a boy or a girl? And I remember standing in a counter at a breakfast place in my hometown on Vancouver Island. And it was my favorite breakfast place. And this person came up to serve me and they were like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And it went through my head. I really didn't know, is that person a boy or a girl? And I was like, immediately, this other little voice in my head was like, does it matter? And then I was like, no, it doesn't at all. And then I chatted with this person and had like a lovely interaction. And all of a sudden, bam, we're at beauty again, right? So I don't know what it was about these two people, but it was kind of like extra. I was like kind of extra a little bit avoidy with them. Just laying it all out here. This is, it is what it is. I'm a human being and I do weird things too, just like everybody else. Anyways, we were having a drink before we were leaving for dinner the other night. And my husband, who is usually very reserved, just said something to the mom because she's always really, really nice to my son. She doesn't speak English, so she directed it to her child. And they spoke like very formal English, very, very well. And we ended up having a conversation to them. And when I say they spoke formal English very, very well, I mean that they spoke better English than we did. And they were very, very nice and cultured and lovely. And I realized in that moment that they could be this like amazing mother-child duo who is like, actually, like this mother could be standing up for their child against the kind of just insane gender norm, pressure that people go through living in Russia and countries like it. And here I am being weird because I can't classify, who they are or, whatever, it like just being closed off when they could be like heroes who are just these wonderful, beautiful people. And all of a sudden we saw them on the way back to that night. We went down for dinner, then we saw them on the way back. And all of a sudden I looked at the mom and I just saw like this beautiful face, this beautiful shining face behind her face. And then after that too, like the child, I just saw like all of these really beautiful, physically beautiful things about them that were genuinely like just like stunning, like, oh wow, like just like this glowing beauty. It was my attitude that brought that out. I'm not saying my attitude made them beautiful, but my attitude made it so that I was able to perceive the beauty that was already there. And maybe, maybe there is a facet of that openness that allowed them to open into beauty as well. But I know for sure that the entire energy uplifted when I saw it. The entire energy just felt the same way when I stood at that counter and I thought, is that person a boy or a girl? Does it matter? No. The whole energy just like mushroomed out and just felt so light and expansive and potential opens up. Seeing the beauty in life uplifts us. And what the hell does this have to do with taking action in our life? Because that makes it natural to act. That makes it natural for us to be ourselves, no matter what we look like, no matter what we can or can't be classified as. It makes it natural for us to do. So beauty is what? Beauty is what? What is beautiful? Well, I saw this mom influencer that I like. She's kind of funny, sharing that her little girl was tucking her sweater into her tights to mimic the mom pooch that mama has. You know why? Because she said, it's pretty. It's pretty. So who says what beauty is? There was a woman who sat on the Senate with me at my university. She was a large woman. She was physically large for a woman, tall, broad, heavy, and stunning. She was stunning. She was stunning, and I'm not just saying that. Like, it took me off guard because, you know, I was this kid still, you know, trying to understand the world, and what I saw in magazines was not this, right? Beauty had been defined for me, and it was not this, and yet she was stunning. Like, stunning. Why? Oh, I mean, from what I can see, I mean, she was always super well dressed, like super well dressed, and always put together. And she was confident. She was confident. Like she walked into a room and she, you know, she knew that she was in that room. She was not shrinking at all. And I'm not saying that there isn't any objective ideals of beauty. What I'm saying is they're not what we say they are. They're not genetic. There is this other woman, Hannah, who I follow on the internet, on social media. And she has some sort of genetic chromosomal something is like very different about her chromosomes. People can say what it is, but I don't know exactly what it is. She has like a feeding tube and she has fitness and she's great. She's really, really funny. But what happened was I hired a personal assistant for a while who was doing my social media, and for a month they used the follow unfollow method, which is super old school. Years ago, people used to follow people on social media so that they'd follow back and then unfollow them. Anyways, I stopped that immediately when I saw what they were doing. But one of the first things that I saw, first people that I realized that I hadn't been following was Hannah. And it was when she first opened her accounts. She had like a couple hundred followers or whatever. And I realized immediately that her face is not put together the way that other people's faces are. Okay. So I was like, what is this? And I was shocked. And I'm embarrassed to say that now. Like, I'm embarrassed to say that I was shocked and I was like, what the hell is on my social media? Because I continue to follow her. And as I got used to her, like totally different face. I'm totally different face. Like, her features are in different places than features normally are. But I just see her as Hannah now. And, you know, I'm like regularly, like, she comes up in my feed and she has like 100,000 followers or something now because she's really, really funny and she's really, really smart. And I think on a regular basis, like, oh, damn, Hannah looks hot today. Like, I look at this face that looks so different from any other face and I see beauty. Like, I see the beauty in her face, like genuinely, just from like a totally normal, natural, you know, admiring beauty, like looking at a flower and being like, wow, you know, place. And P.S., she is totally walking in her beauty. Again, she's confident. She's showing up as her. She's, you know, working through those personal powers, and beauty erupts. So beauty is not defined, one, but also what this has to do with the do step is that beauty is also an action. Okay, so both of these women that I just talked about do not fit the classic, you know, mold of what we consider beautiful, and yet they are. Why? Well, they're likely, I'm just running through like both of these women in my mind. before I say this, and yes, it's true. Yes, it's true. Yes, it's true. Yes, it's true. They're both embracing all of the personal powers that come before beauty. They're all walking in that. So the beauty is the natural next step. However, beauty is also an action, right? Just like me deciding to be open, deciding to rethink, deciding to go through the personal powers again, but also just deciding to be open to the beauty. This is also an action. It's totally an action. I want to illustrate. Have you ever been scrolling on your phone or doing whatever and turn the camera, the phone camera on yourself, like by accident, or you've turned the phone camera on yourself and you look at yourself and you're like, what the, like, ugh, ew, like, why do I look like that? I know you have, because the way that you look, I mean, maybe bad angles and bad lighting and whatever, yes, for sure. But also, the next time that happens, I want you to like try to just like keep the phone camera on you, keep the lighting, keep the angle, and just meditate on beauty. Open yourself up, maybe run through the personal powers, gaining clarity and connection. How do I feel? And expressing that and getting comfortable with myself, feeling confident in myself, and then open up to beauty and open your eyes. Voila. Okay. You will look 100 times better. I guarantee you. You probably look that way because you're all like, scrolling, like, just like not having the best time. Beauty is an action as well as something that we can appreciate, as well as something that is in our lives. My mother saw me after a decade, pretty much. Yeah, probably a decade. And looked at my face, and immediately she said, the first thing she said to me is, wow, life has been good to you. We know that people look rough when life has been tough. Ever met somebody you thought was beautiful, but you got to know them and then it faded? It's an action. It's actions. Beauty is anything but genetic. It's an act. Yes, it's physical, but other things bring it about. Other things that are non-physical bring about beauty. And it's not definable by, a chart, or, it's not comparable to other people. You deserve beautiful things. Okay, when we're talking about the physical level, body, it's also your environment. It's also, the people around you and, the relationships that you have. When we're talking about body, we're talking about all of the other sets, all of the other layers coming into fruition in the physical. So it really encompasses all of the other personal powers, all of the other sets, and how they're operating and how well they're aligned. You deserve beautiful things. You deserve a beautiful life. You deserve beautiful people around you. You can choose to be beautiful. You can choose that. You can choose to be beautiful. You can choose to not be beautiful. I could have stood there at that counter and said, is that person a boy or a girl? I don't know. Ew. Or even, totally innocently, I don't know. That makes me really nervous. I don't know how to act towards this person. You can choose to be open and curious about the beauty and, having boundaries. That's that, we're getting into like the boundaries of the soul, of the, having values about what's important to you and what's not. And, other people's private parts and other people's bodies are none of anybody's business unless, you're a doctor, unless you're their doctor. And like their body is none of anybody else's business. You have to choose for you. You have to choose beauty for you. And especially if you're faced with ugly things, right? Ugly things from the past. Whether they're, like we've been talking about, it doesn't take, absolutely horrible parents to do a number on us and really hinder us from creating our dream life, walking in our purpose, our destiny, the person that we're meant to be. They can just be a product of historicity. They can just be a product of a unevolved culture, which it certainly was 30 years ago. And we're getting better and better and better by the day. And you can choose to embrace that. You can choose to be working towards that. You can choose to be open to that. And you can choose to, question some of the, assumptions that we have that we're carrying from the past that aren't pretty, to open into a prettier tomorrow. Even minimalists, people that live with nothing that's not necessary, essentially. Even minimalists have a criteria for things that bring you joy, for beautiful things. So when a minimalist is deciding, do I keep this thing or do I buy this thing or do I not? One of the criteria is does it bring me joy? Beautiful things bring you joy. So things of beauty are still of value even to people who are living with only the necessities. With the bare necessities. And that's their whole mode of operating. They recognize that beauty is necessary. And beauty is inspiring. Beauty is inspiring. You ever heard anybody say, when I'm having a bad day, I go and buy myself some flowers? Why do you think that is? Flowers are happy, man. Beauty is inspiring. It doesn't matter what it is. So why don't I talk about passion or any of the other character traits that people discuss in regards to success, in achieving success, what's necessary to be successful? Because they're natural. When you're aligned with the personal powers, they're natural. Beauty is inspiring. Beauty inspires you. Where does passion come from? Beauty. It comes from beauty. What would you create if you woke up surrounded by beauty each day? How would you respond to people? Using these examples that I've given you, how would you respond to people if you were seeing the beauty in them? And I'm not saying it's your, responsibility to see the beauty in everybody. I'm not gaslighting here. Okay. You don't need to see the beauty in ugly people. You can just not see them anymore. Okay. I'm talking about surrounding yourself with beauty around you, but also bringing out the beauty within you, following the personal powers down the steps towards beauty. How would your life turn out if this is the path that you were taking? What would your day-to-day life be like? Open to beauty, surrounded by beauty. What would you create? What would you create if you were living aligned with beauty? So I hope you're questioning the decide then do strategy a little bit further now, okay? Because people who can decide and do, they already have all these other steps in place, or they're white knuckling through it, and that won't sustain success, or it won't make them happy, either or. They're not getting the holistic thing. They're not getting the fulfillment. They're not getting the sustainable dream life. And that is why my methods and my theory is called the Sustainable Dreams Theory. It's the name that I came up for it in academia when I was going to study inspiration. But now I bring it to you, and you have access to all of it so that you can get inspired, but not just get inspired, actually live the dream life. This is practical step-by-step stuff I'm teaching here. And if you want the practical step-by-step steps, I go a little bit more in depth and give exercises in the book, How to Not Be Like Your Parents. And next week, I hope you tune in because I am breaking down the last personal power. And it is the driving force behind what people call discipline and motivation. It's also what creates a growth mindset. And obviously grit, if you're familiar with the term grit. that's like discipline and motivation and resilience. This is the personal power that's behind all of that stuff. So make sure you turn into that. Make sure that you're following to get notified for that. If you purchase the book, you'll be on my email list, and I'll send you an email for your Find Self Friday and talk about the latest episode and all the things that I'm thinking about and doing. So until next week, I hope to see you in all of those places, in the book, in the email list, and back here where we're going to discuss the last personal power, and we're going to hack out discipline and motivation and tell you exactly how those people just do it. Until next week, g'day, y'all.